No, that is such a good point and such a good thing to work towards. I don't see that happening in Gaza. And I want to play this clip from Trump where he's being asked point blank, this looks like ethnic cleansing. And what they mean is your plan, even under this humanitarian guise, in order to forcibly expel 1 million, 2 million people out of the Gaza region. And by the way, the West Bank also, where they want to expel those people into Jordan.
And
This
East
plan,
Jerusalem.
right. They point out this is ethnic cleansing. This is Donald Trump's response to being pushed pointedly on this notion of ethnic cleansing.
Nobody wants to say that. They're living in hell. It's a death trap. Nobody wants to say that. They're living in hell. It's a death trap.
Mr. President, how do you know that the Palestinians don't want to leave their land? Some people say this is ethnic cleansing. You won't be able to force them to leave their land.
We're moving them to a beautiful location where they have new homes, where they can live safely, where they'll have doctors and medical and all of those things. And I think it's going to be great. Yeah, any questions? Nobody wants.
He is pushing hard on this idea that this is not ethnic cleansing. We're just moving these people to a better location. That's all. It's going to be beautiful.
This is a perfect example of what I was trying to say earlier, imperfectly, but he's ignorant, not derisive. I'm not saying that in terms of accusing him. He doesn't have the knowledge. And why doesn't he? Because he's listening to Miriam Adelson. He's listening to Elon Musk. He's listening to Pete Hegseth. He's listening to all these people. I hate to say this, Tulsi Gabbard is a rabid Zionist too.
Yes,
he's listening to all these people who are telling him a story that is patently false, but they're all telling him in coordinated effort, and he's only listening to them. So he says these things because he's ignorant. Listen to what he's saying. You're going to pick these people up and put them in a beautiful place. They do not want to be picked up and put in a beautiful place. Look at the people going through the Nazarene corridor when the Israelis allowed them to go north again. They're going through total rubble. I've got videos, a woman walking along with her cell phone taking videos. She speaks fluent English and she's talking to me on the cell phone. And she's saying, look at these people. Look at the euphoria. Look at the happiness in their eyes. They're looking at their homes, their hospitals, their mosques and everything totally destroyed, but they're back in their land. They're back in their land and they're happy. There are tears in their face, you know. They're happy because they're back. Now they're going to be slaughtered because Bibi got what he wanted from Trump. Ignorance. Trump listened to Bibi. He hates Bibi. He hates Bibi's guts, but he listened to him because the other people like Witkoff and others were telling him the same thing. They were telling him that these people like your idea. These people would love to go to someplace nice to live, even if it's Jordan or Egypt, already overrun so much that they can't feed the people they have now. That's a situation in Egypt and Jordan. So Trump doesn't know what he's talking about when he says these things. Put him down in the Nazarene corridor. Let him talk to some of these people. They would never do that. They would never put him there and let him talk to the Palestinians. He doesn't understand what's happening to the Palestinians. And most of all, he doesn't connect the dots. Every one of those now probably 500,000 dead Palestinian who are half children, half women. Every one of them is dead and buried under that rubble because of the United States of America and your predecessor, Joe Biden. That's why, because they couldn't have done it without us. Every bomb, every bullet, every artillery round, they could not have done it without us. He doesn't know that. Donald Trump does not know that his country is responsible for all of that pillage and plunder that he just uses as a backdrop to suggest beachfront properties would be nice for these people. They don't want your beachfront properties. They want their homeland.
But he does know different. And the reason why I say he knows different, this is Trump himself when this was years ago, meaning I'm just going to play the video. This is Trump when it's talking about Netanyahu and effectively saying Bibi doesn't want a deal.
It's a terrible personal trait. I haven't spoken to him since, right? I didn't talk to him.
I thought he wanted to make a deal more than Netanyahu. And I will be honest, I had a great meeting with him, Abbas, right? I had a great meeting with him, and we spent a lot of time together, talked about many things. And it was almost like a father. I mean, he was so nice. Couldn't have been nicer. And after meeting with Bibi for 3 minutes, I looked at him and said, "You don't want to make a deal, do you?" And he said, "Well, and the fact is, I don't think Bibi ever wanted to make a deal. Why? I thought the Palestinians were impossible, that the Israelis would do anything to make peace and a deal."
So he said, I found out that that wasn't true, that it wasn't
Well,
the situation. Yeah.
Yeah,
So he knows.
That makes my point, though. Trump is the victim of the last person to have his ear, and the victim of the last person to have his ear who gave him $100 million, and even
There's
more
that.
than that when you add it all up. So what he's listening to now is the exact opposite of what you saw there, which was rather rational. Mahmoud Abbas, although I would say, Donald, you got hoodwinked there too, because Mahmoud Abbas does not want peace either. Mahmoud Abbas wants to continue his perks and the people around him's perks. They don't want peace. They've never wanted peace. They cooperate with the IDF, with Mossad, and with others when they're oppressing their own people on the West Bank, for example, because they want to keep their perks going. They're worse than Yasser Arafat ever was. So he didn't see through them at all. He saw what Mahmoud Abbas wanted him to see. And that's Trump. He's a captive of the last person to whom he spoke, who spoke eloquently and in a way that Trump could accept. That's Trump. That's what we're dealing with as our president right now. You get him captured for a minute and he says something, that goes away instantly when he hears something else that sounds better to him, or he doesn't even compare what he heard in the past. He just takes the latest thing he hears, and that's what he acts on. That's a typical New York State real estate agent who's really a crook at heart, isn't it?
Do you think he's going to be able to do this? I mean, he has the King of Jordan sitting here with him. He is pushing and putting pressure on Egypt. The New York Times reported that Trump is threatening both, effectively saying the money that you're getting from the United States, we will stop that money, stop the resources, if you don't allow this plan that Donald Trump is trying to push through. Do you think he's going to be able to pull this off?
I do not, because let me tell you, first of all, let's take Egypt. Egypt is virtually a basket case right now, somewhat because, if not majorly because, of its population. It cannot feed its population. It cannot control its population other than with batons and rifles and bullets. It can't find space, water, and food for the population that it has right now. So you're going to dump another 1 million people on Sisi? He'll commit suicide before he'll allow that to happen. Now, the situation in Jordan is maybe not quite as bad in terms of food and space and water and provisions for life that's even beyond the pale. But at the same time, the king is perched on top of a volcano that were he to take another 1 million on top of the 6-7 million he's already got, he'd be so badly outnumbered that I doubt he could sustain his monarchy for more than 6 months, maybe a year. Maybe not at all. It might happen right away. In fact, more than likely it would happen instantly as the flood came in, so to speak. So what they're looking, both of them are looking for right now, and I think Sisi found it by saying he wasn't even coming to the meeting. That was a statement from Sisi. They're looking at the possibility of activating their own forces and taking Israel on. That's one of their options, together taking them on. That
Do you really wait? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Do you really think they do that? I mean, they have stood by.
If they were put in existential circumstances like Trump doesn't know he's doing this. Again, the ignorance is his deficit here. If they're put in existential circumstances where they're going to die here and their nation with them, or they have a remote chance. And look at this now. The IDF is in dire straits right now. One of the reasons Netanyahu, the only real reason he signed up to this first phase of the ceasefire, which he's going to terminate immediately. And by the way, in both the ceasefire with Lebanon and the ceasefire with Israel, the IDF has killed people every single day. Every single day. So there's been no real ceasefire, which is the usual way Israel honors a ceasefire. Not at all.
Mm-hmm.
And when this ends, he's going back to war. So the only thing that he wanted this 42 days or whatever for was to rest and refit an IDF that's almost broken. Hamas has really handed it its ass. Hezbollah did the same thing for a brief time before they agreed to ceasefire with Hezbollah. So the IDF is teetering right now. Its leadership is fractious, even though he's replaced it all with supposedly sycophants. Its middle leadership is very fragile, and its ranks are extremely fragile because it's been beaten. It's been beaten by Hamas, and it knows it's been beaten. And now it's going to be hurled back into that cauldron again because Netanyahu is not going to give up. He's going to kill as many Palestinians as he possibly can. He's going to start very shortly in the future doing exactly what he was doing before. So that's where we are in this. And if armies were to pour into this, and watch what would happen with Erdogan, already positioned north of the Israelis who are expanding into Syria right now, expanding beyond the Golan Heights into Syria. Damascus has no way of stopping them. They are expanding. Erdogan's watching it. Imagine what would happen if the Jordanian armored forces and the Egyptian armored forces said, to hell with it, let's go. And Erdogan said, and they might even coordinate this ahead of time, let's go too. Let's get them from all three flanks.
What would America do in that situation?
Watch, I think. What could we do, really? Now, if Hegseth were to come to Trump and the rest of his National Security Council were to come to him and say, we've got to do something because, remember, my theory is they're our attack dog. We aren't doing their wishes. They're doing our wishes. And say, it's the end of us in the Middle East, the end of us in the Levant, if Israel goes down. I don't know what Trump would do, but I suspect he would say, let them go down.
You really think that Trump, who's been so obsequious to Israel and has given them effectively everything, even to the point of saying, we will ethnically cleanse Gaza. We would literally remove all of these people from Gaza.
That's not ethnic cleansing for him. That's giving them a better life on a beachfront somewhere. That's how you first characterize it.
But that's how he characterizes it. But is that really, that is a generous, because I can't say you're entirely wrong, right? Because Trump may think this is a better out. Because look, from my point of view, I look at this and I say, what if Trump is right? And again, I am one of those people, this is a genocide, this is ethnic cleansing, all of that. It's true from my point of view. But it's like, we're in this kind of weird space where it is clear as day that all of these people have been slaughtered. And okay, something has to change. And so from Trump's point of view, he looks at it, maybe you're right. He looks at it as there's nothing left there for these people to go back to. This is a wasteland. All of this territory has been destroyed. And if we can get them to somewhere else for a better outcome, okay, well, maybe that's a better outcome overall, as opposed to people staying in this particular situation with the war continuing to kind of drag on. Okay, let's say he fully believes it, that this is, from his framing, a humanitarian issue. By the same token, though, Trump has been pretty clear that, yeah, he may not want American troops to get involved in something like that. But if Egypt, Jordan, potentially even Turkey get involved and say, you know what, we're going to end this experiment, this Israeli experiment where they can just kind of expand into Syria and maintain this colony, the settler colonial state in the middle of the Middle East. This is going to end if we don't get involved. Marianne Williamson has given, $100 million or promised $100 million to Donald Trump. You have all of these other Israeli sources. He has put lunatics, Hegseth, Rubio, I forget the other one's name. All of these people are lunatics that he has around him. And as you pointed out, the last person who gives him an argument is the argument that Donald Trump goes with. Why wouldn't Donald Trump be willing to fight that war? If
Because he's ultimately a transactional man. He weighs the balance and he says, well, look at what it would do for him too personally. It would get rid of all this baggage. He'd get rid of all these radical Zionists around him. I don't think he's a radical Zionist. I don't think for a moment he's a radical Zionist. He's just doing what the money givers have asked him to do. And there's nothing more likely than a politician turning on a money giver when the money no longer matters in terms of reality. That is to say, the money's gone. It's already got him elected. It's already done. And you have no more fealty to that money giver because what they gave you the money for ultimately is now gone. And you're not responsible for it being gone. Bibi is. So, I mean, Trump would look at this in terms of advantages to him and advantages to those around him about whom he cares. So this gets rid of the problem. Now Jared can make a fortune because now he can go buy the territory. He can pick up the pieces afterwards. We can remake Israel, but it won't be Israel. We'll call it Jared land or something like that. This is the way Donald Trump thinks. This is the way he looks at things.
Is it possible for even America to fight a war like that against Jordan, Turkey, and Egypt?
Well, we wouldn't. I don't even think we would get into it. He would cut it loose and say it's gone. And I will come back later with the trillions that the empire still can. We print $5 trillion every 6 months that we can still print and send out there. So long as our currency remains the world's currency, we can do that. And Donald knows that. We would just revamp and revise and build it back in our image, so to speak. And Jared would get the lion's share of the profits. And MBS would get enormous profits because Donald would shake his hand and say, come in here now. We can fix this place finally.
Professor, I don't know.
I hope Donald's listening.
You may be right. I just, nothing up to this point has demonstrated a willingness for Donald Trump to back away on anything in regards to Israel. He seems to be giving them not just the political backing, but also the military backing.
But he's under the impression, fed him hook, line, and sinker by these people around him, that Israel's winning. They're not.
Fair enough. So you believe Israel, and I'll leave it on this one. You believe Israel has fundamentally overextended itself.
Yes, that's a great term. That's a great term. That's a good military term. They have overextended themselves majorly.
Wow. Professor Wilkerson, man, you are a learned speaker on these issues. I deeply appreciate you joining me. Professor Colonel Wilkerson, Lawrence Wilkerson, distinguished visiting professor of government and public policy at the College of William & Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia. He also taught for 6 years at the University Honors Program at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. He is also, and probably best known, as retired United States Army Colonel and former Chief of Staff for Colin Powell. My man, thank you for this. I really do appreciate it. You be safe today.
May Colin Powell rest in peace.
He was a good man. If nothing else, he was a good man.
The last good man in Washington.
I'll leave it on that. Thank you for this. Be safe.
Take care.